Are we ready to start? Let's
Well,
go.
go
We'll
ahead.
go.
Go ahead and
I
ask
say,
the question.
well, do you think I could fake a good British accent like David's got?
No,
I can't do.
no, no.
That's just so. That's just so cool.
No, because you're gonna throw in a governor or
I got
something,
that.
or yeah, don't do it.
I
Yeah,
could break into a little bit of I am Henry VIII. I am.
yeah. It's, again, yeah,
No,
don't, yeah,
don't. Okay.
yep.
All
Just
right.
stick with the English that you and I both butcher.
Yes, true. All right. Are you ready to start this little banter, or are we already bantering?
We're already bantering,
I
but
think
you
we
know
already
what?
bantered. I think the fact that okay, no Henry VIII. I am
No, don't do it.
because I just did, and I don't get the I am. Yeah, that's not even quite it. No,
I'm
no.
watching Dave below us. You don't see him in the holding area, and even he's going like this.
Yeah, don't please do Andy.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
don't do it, Randy.
He
Don't
he
do it.
he just sent you a message said one more Henry VIII and I'm out of here. He's
That's right.
gone. All right, well let's go talk to David because he's a return guest, and as we mentioned, there's two ways you get back, and either really really good or really really bad, and it took us a while to decide on David. I'm just kidding. You know, he's one of the real deals, and we always love to go across the big pond, right?
It's always great, and he's not talking about barndominiums. We've had our first two guests are talking about barndominiums, so now we get to go into the other side of building wins.
Exactly, we do.
Yeah.
So let's go.
He's on the win side of the building.
Yeah, he is because he's a winner.
That's good. Yeah,
let's
get to him.
All right.
All right.
David, how you doing, brother?
I'm very well, Randy. Thanks so much for that interesting chat that you and Wes just had. And I will try not to break into any Cockney English because that's not where I'm from. But yeah, thanks for the invite. Thanks for the invite back. I'm looking forward to spending some time chatting with you today and giving some insight for the audience about perhaps asking better questions about business and life in general.
I love it. I love, and that's so key because it's all about questions, isn't it? But before we get to that, tell everybody in case they're silly enough to not remember who you are, which if that's the case, I'm a little unhappy with them, but just in case, who is David Rogers and where are you from, and give us your background, and then let's get into what you're doing now.
So I'm from near a city called Wolverhampton in the West Midlands, which is about an hour and 40 minutes, 2 hours north of London, in the UK. For obviously for the audience that we're speaking to tonight, or tonight as it is for me, it's in the afternoon for you guys over there. And I am a twice published author. First book, which is when I first came onto the show nearly 3 years ago, or just over 3 years ago, was Fueled, Fit and Fired Up. There we have it, which was written all about helping people with their mental health and emotional well-being and physical fitness, I suppose, to a certain degree, written during lockdown, a big passion of mine still now. And then what's happened over the last 3 years since I was last with you, I left my corporate career behind. I was probably the equivalent over in the UK working for PLCs of sort of, I suppose, a vice president level in US organisations, just to give a bit of comparison. And I left that behind to start my own business consulting and coaching and keynote speaking business called Fueled, Fit and Fired Up, named after the original book that I wrote. And since then, I've been working with various different businesses, helping them ignite their curiosity into how they can make their businesses better, bigger, bolder, and using everything I've learned over a nearly 30-year career in business and leadership to help them do that, which culminated in my writing my second book, The Business Explorer: Your Route to Success, back in November. And yeah, that's sort of me in a nutshell. All about curiosity, all about creativity, all about asking better questions.
So questions. How important is questions in the world of business? Because I think I know what the answer is, but I want to hear Dave's vision of the answer, because we all understand, and coming from the corporate level where you came from, I've never worked at that level. I've worked for people that a little more corporate than I care for at times, maybe in my past life, but a lot of times there's not many questions asked. There's just orders given, right? And what's your take on that?
I mean, for me, questions are everything, and the better questions, the more open questions, is definitely the way forward. I think you look at all of the successful businesses, well, go back as far as you care to remember, and I think it all boils down to empowering the teams that work for the businesses, and you do that through asking them questions and asking them what they think about the challenges that the business have got, because actually the people, in my experience, the people at the, for want of a better phrase, the front line of any business are the ones who see the challenges and are probably the ones that have got the solutions and probably the better ideas and more creativity about resolving those challenges than maybe historically we would have had at those more senior levels within corporate businesses and all sizes of businesses, really.
So, what kind of business do you have? A cross section of business you like to work with, or is it the corporate, or is it small business, medium-sized business, industry? What type of retail, wholesale? What do you like, or do you like to work with them all?
Yeah, so for me, the things that I've learned during my corporate career around, working in sales and marketing, in property, in franchising, in finance, across every single, business function, I suppose, in corporate business, means I've got quite a well-rounded view of business, which means my skill set is transferable to any size of business, any industry. For me, it's more about the people, because going back to your point about the questions, is it's all right asking difficult questions of people or challenging questions of people when you're going in as a consultant or a business coach. But if they're not open to those questions being asked of them or wanting to explore those answers, then actually that's where the challenge and the friction comes. So my ideal client is actually more based around the person's mindset and sort of them knowing they want to change something about themselves or their business and wanting to make that change, but not necessarily knowing how to go about it. And that's the bit that I sort of, close that triangle of three things through what I've learned and what I share with people through my business.
Gotcha. So now, are you typically, you would be hired by the business management team or owner,
Yeah.
depending on the size of the business, to come in and work with his team. So I assume, how does this happen? Are you, and what I'm asking, I guess, is it a business owner or a management level person, senior management level, depending on the size of the business, that recognizes I need help or I have an issue? That finally makes that call. I assume that, what's that? I guess I'm really looking for the psyche behind what makes a person that hires David, the business explorer, what makes them just go, you know what? I need somebody. I need help. What is how do they get to that point? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think there's several answers to that question. Actually, it's a great question, because I think it goes back. I think it depends on the individual. I think there's certain elements of people they're able to recognise that they have perhaps taken their business as far as they can in terms of the business growth, and they're looking for somebody to give them a fresh pair of eyes to unlock that next level of growth. And it might be, introducing a new revenue stream, or it might be helping them understand how their business model might move. It might be understanding their cost base. It might be looking at their customer service, model. And I think what happens is that the individuals perhaps either are at that point, or unfortunately, on a number of occasions, I've spoken to people, they're in a place where they've found it quite challenging in their business. They're being dragged into the day-to-day operations of it and just can't, for want of a better phrase, see the wood for the trees, and are looking for somebody to help them unpick all of those things so that they can actually take that step back. And that's not just, what I would describe as solopreneurs, so, sort of owner managers of businesses. Mm-hmm. That's, to a certain degree, can be at, leadership levels as well. I think the larger businesses I've tended to work with, it's been a case that they've found a particular challenge. They've realised they can't necessarily answer it, internally, whether it be because they've not got the skill set, or whether they haven't got the time, or those sorts of things, or they recognise that they need somebody with my sort of expertise, and so they just, pick up the phone or drop an email and say, Dave, can you come and have a chat with us about this? And then, and then we move on from there, really, to be honest.
That's interesting. And so as I talk to you, I'm thinking about this. Just take any size business. There's, as you said, there's finance, there's sales and marketing, there's HR, there's all the different segments of a business, right? I assume a business owner, a manager, a client, whatever position they may have, may be hiring you or want to hire you or feel they have a need for a specific area of that. But you probably, I'm guessing, and I'm asking this question, it's open-ended question because I don't know the answer, which is probably a mistake because trial attorneys should never ask their witness without knowing the answer, right? But you have to work with more than just the one segment. If it's sales and marketing they need help with, they're not on an iceberg by themselves, right? And maybe that's where you work, but there's all these others. There's procurement, there's finance, there's accounting, there's operations that all have to come into play, right? So I'm guessing, and you're nodding your head, so I'm guessing that you have to have a broader stroke than I'm just going to talk about how to be a better sales guy, right?
Yeah. And I think, that's a really, really great point, because I think a lot of businesses do, or a lot of businesses where I end up going and helping them perhaps on a couple of occasions, it's where they've had that silo mentality. So they've made decisions and not thought about the fact that, I don't know, for example, if you're increasing your sales team by 50%, well, guess what? Your sales are probably going to grow by 50%, but have you got the team to deliver the customer service that you need, or operationally able to deliver those services? So it's my job to provide that holistic view, because I've been lucky enough to work in a number of those functions in my corporate career, to be able to go, well, actually, let's bring in, HR, or sales and marketing or operations, because we need to close those sort of doors to any potential problems that might occur. And I think it's interesting that one of my clients that I worked with early on, I went in to do some work around doing discovery on a new finance system for them. And I ended up working with them for probably 12 months, looking at finance systems, new HR systems, new workforce deployment systems, new reporting, because they recognized that actually having somebody who understood their whole business to help them with all sorts of challenges across the business was probably a better way than bringing in potentially, consultants within those specific areas, just to make it more efficient.
Well, exactly. And as you're talking, you think about, we all need more sales, right?
Yeah.
But you generate more sales, and that's a whole nother subject to the marketing and branding and how do we do all those things, which is a subject for 12 hours of talk. But but we need more sales, and we've got a way to go get more sales, we think. But it's not just as simple as that, right? Because we've got financing. Can we finance more sales? Because that's going to drive up our cost. Do we have the money available to buy the extra inventory? Do we need more space? Do we need more people, more trucks, more, right? Do we have the space to make the product? Do we have the HR in place to hire the people to make the product? So it's not, and that's what I think is really interesting with what you do is, yes, I could find a way to brand you and to do the marketing and then do the advertising and to teach your sales teams to close, to get the leads, to close the deals. But what are we going to do when you have a 50-60% increase and you haven't done anything to the infrastructure, right?
That's right. And particularly sort of round by where I live, we're heavily, manufacturing based, or, businesses, and, and obviously some of the, your clients are manufacturing, some big, big items. And that to me is the biggest challenge is that there's such a knock-on effect when you start talking about extra sales, particularly in that sort of manufacturing environment, because it's, another 10% of sales might mean you need to invest in a brand new machine to, produce new roofing sheets, or produce new, steel for, steel fabricated buildings and things like that. And all of a sudden, what feels like is going to make you a lot more sales and a lot more profit, all of a sudden your cash flow's impacted, because you've got to then try and finance a brand new machine. And then you've got to go, well, we're only going to be at 20% capacity of that machine. How do we get that to 75% capacity, because that's then, and then all of a sudden it's not a 20% sales increase, it's a 75% sales increase, and it's
Right.
and it just keeps rolling around, and you just keep finding the right way and the right timing of that longer term planning of growing businesses. Is really crucial, really important.
Right. Well, and an interesting thing is, and as you know, my niche in the world is sales and marketing. That's what I do. But I think it's interesting that you can also get so dug into looking for new sales, which is highly important. It's the lifeblood of what we do. But if we take on all this new business and we forget about or cannot handle, or the service levels with the existing people that's been with us for a long, long time, sometimes we could take a very satisfied, very raving fan, as Ken Blanchard would say, a customer fan, and turn them into satisfied at best. And we all know satisfied customers will go away by not paying attention to them anymore, because, yay, Dave, you want to grow your business, and well done, you grew your business. But I used to get product in 3 days. Now I'm getting it in 13 days. And you don't seem to care about that. Maybe I need to look elsewhere. So all you've done is really more than trade dollars. And I'd love your opinion on this, because even if dollar for dollar, trading dollars for this brand new guy that may or may not be with you because you have no history together, versus that same dollar maintaining the customer you've had a 26-year relationship with, I think personally, if I have to make a choice, perfect world, we don't have to make a choice. We do it right. But if we're not going to do it right, if we haven't done it right, or we realize we haven't done it right now, making sure that dedicated, loyal, raving fan that's been with us for 26 years better get the golden coin right now, right?
That I could not agree more. I think, you know, as you say, your niche is sales and marketing. It costs so much more to find a new customer versus looking after your current customers, and it'll be the old, 80-20 rule as well, that in a lot of businesses, 80% of the revenue will be coming from 20%, of your customer base. And it's making sure that, yes, everybody's going to get, golden customer service, because that's the route. I love the fact you mentioned raving fans. I read that book probably 15 years ago. It formed a big part of my career within the hospitality industry, which is, where I really learned the skills around customer service and customer experience. I think it's becoming now, and it doesn't matter what you're selling. If you're not giving your customers or your guests or your clients, whatever you want to call them, in whatever industry you're working in, if you're not giving them a great experience, they will move. And I think particularly now with, the challenging business economic environments there are, globally now as well, is I think people will move on price quite a lot quicker if the customer service isn't there and they're not seeing that value of being recognized as a regular customer. And as you said, earlier, being satisfied is not good enough anymore. You've got to be delivering, exceptional experiences, as I describe it, every single time. And actually, going back to where we were talking before, actually the power of asking better questions in that environment to understand where those customers' pinch points are and alleviating those, go a long way to cementing those long-term relationships for businesses as well.
I think it doesn't, when you're in the world of sales, I think like you said, learning what those pinch points or those pain points are, but you go a long ways by the sheer willingness to show that you care and that you ask those questions, because there's a whole lot of people, and there's a whole lot of people in the world of sales, and I've been in it forever, and I'm old. So I mean, I used to sell life insurance to the dinosaurs, which was a go nowhere business. But if I don't ask you the right questions to make a determination that this is the right relationship, it's probably maybe not destined to fail, but the chances of this failing as a relationship is much greater than if we get these things out of the way. Because guess what? Everything that you want from me as a sales guy from my manufacturer may not be perfect for you. I don't know that I can be everything. Because if I try to be everything, and that's a mistake I think a lot of sales guys make. You tell me, Dave, what you want, and I'll tell you, yes, sir. Knowing that I'm not going to be able to do that. And correct me if I'm wrong, and please disagree, but the best time to get that out of the way is before we go down this road.
Yeah.
Right. Let's find out together, interview each other. And if this is one thing I can't do, Dave, we can negotiate around it a little bit. Maybe I can take a little edge off the edge here. Maybe I can do a little of this, but is this going to be a deal breaker or not? Because if it is for me, we have no place to go anyway. And so why are we wasting your time or my time if it just becomes, because every opportunity doesn't necessarily mean it's a good opportunity, right? And I think it's up to us, it behooves us as salespeople to not get so wrapped up in just getting the sale, because getting the sale is such a early on small part of it. It's a big part of it, but it's a small part of the overall deal, right? So I've talked a lot. Does that make any sense what I just said? I just made all that up, so I don't know.
Well, you did a very good job, Randy. You did a very good job. I'd agree. I'd agree with what you said. I think it's so important, asking the right questions right at the beginning to understand whether you're going to be wasting each other's time, whether it's whether it's a sell, selling roofing sheets or work coming and working in a pub restaurant, or whether it's some of my coaching clients. And I think it's so important that you've also got to have that understanding about whether you're actually going to get on, because at points in this process, as we've discussed already, there will be problems that arise on both sides of the relationship. So actually, if you're starting off with somebody, I don't know, for argument's sake, who is solely wanting to buy on price, and your business is built on having fantastic value and customer service, which means you are not going to be the cheapest in the market, then you're just not going to get on, because at some point they're just going to go, well, we're on our way then now, and you'd be better off getting those things out, through better questioning at the start of the relationship being built, and it allows, going back to that point about providing really good service for your existing customers. It means the sales guys have actually got more time to be doing that, because they're getting not that they're getting less leads, but they're getting better qualified leads to convert them into great customers. And therefore, the time that you would normally go around for a lot of sales guys, I'm probably being a little bit unfair on sales here, so please don't hate me. Is that you do that it's a bit like, what are my numbers? How many leads? What's my pipeline? But you don't look at the quality of the pipeline, because you could have 100 customers, but if you're only going to get one of those, it's going to be a 26-year customer. That isn't a great pipeline in my view. So
well, and the thing back to managing, I'd love to hear your take. We've touched on it a little bit. Managing the pipeline, managing the new leads, versus the existing customer, right? It's easy to forget that existing customer, and because of the drive by management, the drive by yourself. If you're a commission guy, I need more business, I need more sales. This guy's good now, I've got him. Well, there's a reason you got him. Yeah. Because of all the things you did. And the easiest customer, again, correct me if you disagree, but my experience has been the easiest customer in the world to sell something else to is the guy I've already been selling stuff to. Yeah. So why would I take and blow an opportunity with existing customer that we've got a long-term relationship? I know him, he knows me, we know what we can do. He's not going to ask me for those things that he knows I can't do, because we haven't done it in 22 years, and I've told you no 22 times. right?
Yeah.
Nothing's changed. So he wanted to ask because he knows and he's comfortable with what we can do. But I also know what he does. If you've built your relationship as a sales pro, you probably always will get an audience on a new product. You may not sell, right? You still got to do your job. It's still got to be right. But probably 90% of the time, 80% of the time, you'll at least get an audience with that customer and a legitimate look, where if it's just some new lead that came in off the internet, or some guy saw a billboard or saw a Facebook something somewhere, something, who knows what that is? Hopefully it's good, but that's as I can't remember. I would say who that is, but that's that's not even a prospect yet. That's a suspect, right?
Yeah.
That's all that is. That's a suspect. Okay, so they looked at your website and said, "I want some information." They're not even a prospect yet, right?
Yeah.
They're simply a suspect that you got to qualify. So my only point, I'm going really long on this, but my only point of that is that's important.
Yeah.
But if you've got an existing customer right now that's gave you everything he could give you for the last 20 years, I think you have to weigh heavier, right? On let's take care of this guy right now, because he's not even a suspect or a prospect. He's a raving fan again, as we went to. Anything to that valid at all, or am I full of whatever?
No. Again, I think, everything you've said there is legitimate. I think you think about, if I don't know, let's take, let's say when if I wrote another business book, it makes sense to me that I would market that to the existing database I've got of people who bought my previous book. Not go, I'm going to ignore those people and I'm just going to post drop a post on, as you say, Facebook or LinkedIn and hope for the best sort of thing. And I think that's the bit that people miss. I think sometimes in that customer experience, they think that sometimes the experience only exists at the point that something's bought, and actually that point in the relationship is small in comparison to everything that goes on around it. And the point about yes, somebody may have landed on your website because they've seen something advertised, or the neighbor has used this product or told them about it, but actually how do you know that person is, as you said, going to buy whatever you're selling on your website, because you haven't spent the time to get to know them and nurture them. And I get it, because sales can be, as it can be quite a cutthroat business, and actually it's the numbers. Right.
Correct.
But all you end up doing is, the reason it's like that is because you're getting 30 or 40 customers dropping off every year, and you need to fill your hopper back up with new leads. And because you need to find 150 leads for every 30 customers that actually buy something from you, and then they're brand new customers, so you haven't got the and all of a sudden it just becomes a never ending cycle that just stops you from actually giving that great experience to the people who are buying regularly from you and would buy your new product tomorrow. You've only got to look at a company like Apple, for example. Apple have got a very loyal, customer base, and as soon as a new iPhone's released, there's queues outside every Apple shop globally waiting for people, because they have nurtured that relationship and thought about the functionality of their products to enable it to be something that appeals to their regular customers.
Great point. So you wrote the workbook, or the first book, which was incredibly successful. I read it 2.5 times. I read it the first time. I did. I read it the first time, and then I read it the second time to see what I missed, and then I started the third time. Then I got bored. But no, I'm just kidding. It's a great book. Tell me about the new book. Why? Why did you write the new one?
Yeah.
What's it about? Who's it geared to? Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so the second book, Business Explorer: Your Route to Success. Thank you, Wes, in the background for dropping that image of the book up there. So that I wrote this one because I realised that whilst I was hugely passionate about and still am about mental health and well-being and physical and emotional health, the subject of the first book, it actually didn't really resonate with the business that I'd started in terms of the consultancy and stuff like that. And as I said earlier, I've got, the best part of 30 years experience of working for all sorts of organisations, doing all sorts of exciting things. So I thought I'd write a business book that shares sort of everything that I've seen that I believe has made businesses or people that I've worked with successful, or in some cases unsuccessful. So the book is split into 3 specific sections. The first section, the Golden Compass, is all about understanding success, what success looks like for you, what your vision is, what your values are, what your mission is for your business, what your passions are, and that sort of direction that you want to be taking your business in. The second section, the Explorer's Toolkit, is all about the skills and behaviors that I've seen successful businesses and leadership teams exhibit. So it talks about how to manage imposter syndrome. It talks about growth mindset. It talks about resilience. It talks about those sort of softer skills that we perhaps take for granted, like networking. You're a sales guy. Networking's a big thing. In your world, and to me, networking is probably the number one skill that most people need to learn. That
yes.
struggle with the most, perhaps. And then the final section, which is called Beyond the Horizon, is all forward future thinking and looking. So it's about how do you build a longer term strategy? How do you horizon scan for the problems and opportunities? How do you think about all of the risks that could, or the challenges that might happen, and how can you resolve them, or think about how you can mitigate them before you even go on the journey to make yourself more successful and to make yourself, win more often. So that's sort of brought the book together. Like my first book, you could read it from cover to cover if you wanted to. It's got a natural flow to it. However, if you opened it up, looked at the contents page and said, I really like the look of chapter 17, Dave, I'm gonna dive into that, you can just dive in and read those sections. I'm sharing experiences of my own within the chapter. Each chapter's got a very similar structure. Sort of an intro to the subject matter, a little bit of, I suppose, science or business psychology that sits behind these things. Then I write about an individual or a business that I believe in sort of, for want of a better phrase, modern business exhibits that skill or that belief or that that behavior really well. And then how you can go about manifesting it for yourself and your business, and some of the things you need to look out for. So there's a lot packed into, 300 plus pages. Hopefully, people go out and buy it and have to see me on here and like what they read, or and want to take it into their businesses.
Love it. And how do they get your book? Let's talk about that.
So the book's available on Amazon. It's available as an ebook or a paperback. Yep. It's available in the US from Amazon.com.
Okay.
If people drop onto my Linktree link, which is the one that's on the screen at the moment, that's got a link to it to buy it directly from Amazon. I think it's $20 in the US, and it's available globally across the Amazon network.
Awesome. Well, I have not, in total honesty, read the new one. Usually I do read new books before, or at least part of them before I have, author friends on, but I've been actually working, Dave,
I know.
Trying to build business. I hate it when work gets in the way. It gets in the way of all kinds of fun stuff, but that's all right. If my life insurance with the dinosaurs would have paid off, I wouldn't have to work, but that didn't. So There we are.
Exactly.
So you did, well, let me ask this first, because, and this is strictly from an interest on my own level, and it's my podcast. So, the bottom line.
Yeah. But it's a great angle to come from, to be honest.
It is. That's what I think. Well, and I've said before, I very seldom don't have guests on that I talk to that I don't want to. I mean, to be brutally honest, I'm not saying it wouldn't be somebody that I would talk to that I wasn't that interested if it was a subject that was important. But yeah, I talk to people I'm interested in, that I like and know and believe in. But with that said, writing the book, because I'm close. We're in the formatting stages now of my book.
Oh, excellent.
And you may get a copy so you can say something good about it. And I'm going to bring up something in a minute that you did that I've learned from you. So everything does not for naught with what you say. But what's the process of writing books been like for you? Tedious, tough, hard, enjoyable, some of both?
Yeah, I think it was. There's a lot of people who I know who said to me, writing a second book is a little bit like when a musician has to write a second album, and they always say it's really hard. And I think what I found was, because my subject matter was different to the first book, it was almost like I was starting the process again. And because I was so passionate about what I was writing about, it was my own experiences. It was, I'm not going to say it was easy, because it wasn't. I think it's just, for me, it's just having that structure in place that says, for these 2 hours every day, which is what I did, I was working on the book. So it might have been writing, it might have been reading, research, it might have been designing front covers, it might have been editing, it might have been formatting, but I just religiously every 2 hours every day for probably 3 to 4 months, to get me to a place where I was able to publish it in towards the back end of November last year. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you, I remember you telling the story when you was on with your first book, and it was a really cool story, and it's one I'm stealing and going to use.
Fantastic.
Is that I remember you were in London and some different places, and you just conveniently left one laying on a park bench or somewhere. And I love that idea. And in my industry, I think my book's going to be, not to hear talk about it, but it's going to be a little more niche maybe, but I think it's for anybody in sales. But I'm going to find it. I'm gonna do a David Rogers, and I'm gonna just conveniently leave one at the Showtel or the hotel show bar, just sort of laying there. That kind of thing. I just thought that was from marketing. I thought that was a brilliant move. I love that.
And to be honest, this book is almost a extended business card to a certain degree. So what I've done is there's been an amazing number of people who bought my book, but from a sort of a marketing tool, it's great. And funnily enough, I met a potential client earlier this week in a local coffee house in the village that I live in, and I gifted this potential client a copy of my book, and the owner of the coffee house was sitting at the table next to us, and she said, "Well, you never bring us any gifts." So I went in the following day and took her a copy of both my books, and they're now sitting proudly in the corner, sort of with all of the other books. And I think it's just. I think it's nice, and I think I remember the story now when you told it, and it was I think it was when we did the day 17, or it was around that time, but I remember that it was something to do with that, and it was just sitting there, and next thing I know, it was still Twitter at the time. It was before Elon bought it, and somebody tweeted and tagged me in the tweet. So I've just found this book on this park bench in Regent's Park, and so it's I think it's just a nice way to get things out into the world, because ultimately it's an exciting, it's an interesting, it's a energizing process writing a book, and you just want to share it with the world, and you just find the best way to do that.
There you go. So I'll be cognizant of your time, because what is it, about midnight there in the UK?
Not quite. It's 25 to 9.
Oh, okay. It's almost Betty bedtime.
So we've got hours left yet.
So you did one more of many really exciting things that I find incredibly interesting, as you did a TEDx speech not long ago. Tell me about that, because now you're a TEDx speaker. That's kind of a big time.
It was. I hadn't realised how big a thing it was till somebody said to me, that less than 0.006% of the global population has ever stood on either a TED or a TEDx stage. So that's about 500,000 people in the world, and I'm lucky enough to be one of those people. So yeah, so I spoke at our local TEDx event. Probably about 5 weeks ago now. It's been on YouTube. Again, through my link tree, you can see that video. It's been on YouTube for about 2 weeks now. And the experience was fantastic from start to finish. It's always something I've wanted to do. My talk was called "The Art of Asking: How Better Questions Create Exceptional Experiences," and it shares a story about my time working in hospitality and a couple of behavioral psychology principles that I think are really interesting to understanding how we can ask better questions and why we do the things that we do, and how different we could make all of our lives by just focusing on asking better questions. And the process itself, the support we had from the TEDx Wolverhampton team was amazing, as I'm sure it is for every TEDx franchise across the world, just in terms of rehearsal space, support. I'm a relatively experienced speaker in a corporate setting, so speaking in front of company conferences and things like that, but to be then told you're standing sort of on your own with the light shining on you on a big red dot on a stage with no notes and no slides, it sort of brings a different level of excitement to it, and just and just the principles of sort of learning that talk and delivering that talk, and the rehearsal processes, and just thinking about the dynamics of how it worked was a really great experience.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
When I saw you were doing that, or saw you had done that, I guess I looked at the YouTube immediately. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
Not only was the message very good, but the delivery was excellent. So seriously, well done. I would recommend that to anybody that wants to know a little more about Dave. Check YouTube for TEDx, and go to Amazon and buy the books. Buy them both.
Yeah, I agree.
Buy lots and give them to your friends. I mean, they're really. I can speak honestly about your first one, Fueled, Fit, and Fired Up. Did I get that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
And I almost like I pay attention. See, my wife said they don't pay attention, but maybe it's only her. But I'm glad she's not here right now. There's the Dixie song. That's her. I'm in trouble. But speaking about it, so off the subject, that's where I go sometimes, Dave. But you talk about listening and asking questions. And when you ask questions, you probably ought to listen and maybe pay attention to what they say. Might be helpful. I have a problem with that with the Dixie Chick. Is I don't always listen fully or at all sometimes. And usually though, I'm smart enough and been around long enough that I catch just enough. You weren't listening, were you? Oh yeah, what'd I say? You get just enough to. I'm a sales guy, and I don't believe in BSing people, but I can if I need to, right?
Yeah.
But one day or a while back, David says, "You didn't listen to a word I said, did you?" Yeah, I did. Yeah. What'd I say? I got nothing. You're right.
Yeah.
I had nothing. I mean, I couldn't even make it up. I just got nothing. So I said, okay, you got me on that one. But you know what? With that, and I like to learn all the time. I consider myself a student of the game of life, as we all should be. And that was a good lesson for me and I thought about this, do you do that with your customers ever, Randy? Mm-hmm. Because maybe you do and you don't recognize it, so be better about that. Are you listening? Are you listening to comprehend and to understand and to delve into more? or are you listening just to give some rattled off response that you canned up in some speech somewhere? Like, they like a lot of, I don't think as many people do it nowadays, but there's industries and places for scripts and canned speeches, right? That's not me, because I'm not smart enough to remember a canned speech, but which might be a problem for TEDx. But the problem is I do want to do TEDx, but I'm going to talk about something I know. So if I'm talking about something I know and love, it's different than you give me a subject I got to go learn and learn the speech, right? But I think that I think so many times you talk about networking, which is massively huge, right? Yeah. We just can't do enough networking. That's one of the most beautiful things about doing this podcast. We're on 4 years with this now. Is the incredible guests that we've met from all walks of life. And people, without doing this, I wouldn't have met people that I met, people that introduced me to you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's all the time, and it's amazing the background and the understanding of life in general that brings you, because last thing I'll throw out, and we'll finish this up, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And you've been so good, you might have earned a third trip back, so write another book. But we don't have to wait that long. But is networking within our industry is what a lot of sales guys think. And that's, of course, very important to network within the industry, right? That's where your quickest gain may be. But even within an industry, if we network a lot, we tend to have groupthink, right? There's a certain way any industry thinks, talks, and believes about certain stuff. And so you get that belief almost by osmosis, if that's the only thing you associate with. Even if you're a leader type personality, you think out of the box or think no box at all, you're still that's what you hear every day. So I love talking to people so far out of my industry that has like absolutely ridiculous to even talk to these people, you'd think, right? Because it has nothing to do with what I do. But I just like these people. They're fun to talk to. You make good friends around the world like yourself. But secondarily, I think you learn more from people many times. If you're in the industry as long as I've been, I'm not saying I know everything, because I don't, but I kind of know a lot because I've done it so long. Where I can really learn is to learn from people out of the industry that have different views, different ways, different ideas. Then why can't I bring that back to what I do, right? I don't care whether you're selling stuff for Elon Musk, as you mentioned earlier. I don't care what you're doing. There's certain people talking and dealing with people. That's the same, right? And so anyways, I loved when you brought up the networking. I'm a big believer in networking. I almost never say no to having a quick Zoom or virtual with somebody new. Because what's the worst case? We blew a half hour. I blew in a half hour just deciding which wine I want tonight, right? So I mean, Dr. Pepper, because I don't drink wine. I drink Dr. Pepper, which is a code word for wine, because there's a long story. But anyways, for another day. And there's Dr. Pepper. I knew it was coming. Wes was falling asleep, and I wanted to give him something to do. He gets back behind the curtain in the Wizard of Oz, and then sometimes I'm not sure what he's doing. So I think I'm gonna ask him I want to see him on the screen here so I can make sure. But anyway, David, final thing, because Wes loves me to ask the SAQ, the should ask question. What did we miss today that you wish we'd have talked about, or just when you're out and about in your business consulting world, your writing world, whatever the case may be, that you just wish people would ask more and they just never do? What's that one question that? And see, this is a trick, because you're a smart dude. A lot of times we tell people we might ask this question, but I figured I didn't need to ask you this one.
Yeah, and it's a great question. I think that the best question somebody can ask somebody is, how can I make your life easier? I think quite often we'll quite often say, how can I help? Or what can I do for you? But I think make that particular phrasing of how can I make your life easier, I think it just opens the conversation up so much more. I
like that. There's a total different connotation to that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because now I'm asking you to let me in a little more. I don't
Yeah.
want to just, can I help you? What kind of widget you looking for? And I'll get you a good price. Well, you need a better price. Well, I got a discount somewhere probably, right? That's transactional stuff, right?
Yeah.
But another subject for another day, but I'm a big believer that as much as sales guys, we got to stay away from that dreaded T word, transaction, right? We all have to have them. I mean, at some point, I got to ring the cash register, right? You got to give me an order. I need to ship the stuff, or at some point, I'm never going to sell anything, right? But if we're always led down that road to just being a transaction, as sales guys, we always lose transactions because it means we only got it because of price. If it's only transaction, which means we'll only have it until the next guy comes in and he's 3.5% less than I was, and then I don't have the business anymore. That's a transaction, right? I want people to buy, and I think when you ask about questions, buy because of the overall package that we bring you, because it's never just price. You know, that triad of price, quality, service, which should be quality, service, price in my mind, because the price is zero matter if the quality and the service is not there. And last thing, because I promised I'd let you go like 3 minutes ago, but my mind gets whirling here, and I could talk to you forever. I had a guy once, real quick. You want to know how much one of my products was? I mean, that was the first thing right out the gates. 3 minutes into the sales call. And I goes, why would that matter? He said, well, I need to know the price. I said, but you don't know the quality of my product at all. So I'm either way too high or way too little, probably based on your position, right? Because if you're looking for the cheapest in the whole planet Earth, that's not me. So if that's the only game, we can save each other's time right now, right?
Yeah.
But I also may be too cheap if I've got a product that's 10 times better than what you're buying now at a fair price. So, and my point of all that is, I think when you ask those questions, I love that question or that way of saying that. How can I make your life easier? I think we just opened that door to, man, I'll tell you, if I could just get this product, you know, in 3 to 4 weeks instead of the 7 or 8 I'm getting it now because it's killing me. Well, especially if you know, hey, I have 3 to 4 weeks on a regular basis, you know?
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I love that. That's beautiful. Great ask question. Love it.
Thank you.
Dave, anything else, buddy? Or I'm going to let you go to bed. I mean, it's late, and I might have to go get a Dr. Pepper. I'm not sure, but I might.
I mean, the one thing I'll just quickly add, just off the back of what you said about networking, I think one of the other things that I've noticed since I've started my own business, having stepped out of the corporate world, is how important my internal networking was inside the big businesses. In terms of within those other, I think not many people realize you can network internally within the large organizations you work for. Networking's not all about external, and that's where you get a different view, different knowledge. And I loved your point as well about going outside of the industry that you work in, because I think that's where for me that's where the real learning happens. And I've been privileged to work with, you know, businesses in all sorts of industries since I started my own business that I'd never worked in before in 25 years of corporate life. And it's been great because you're just learning every day. And I've got a different view to those people. They've got a different view to me. So it's just it's just a great experience all round. And, you know, appreciate you, Randy, appreciate, you know, Wes, and thanks for the invite to come back tonight.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely. Yeah, well, we appreciate you being on, my friend. And as we've probably said before, once a friend of the show, and once a friend of me and Wes, you don't get rid of us. I mean, you're stuck for life with me and Wes.
Love it.
Friends.
Love it.
Is that all right? We can do that.
Yeah,
all right.
That's fine. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. All right. Well, hey, appreciate you, brother. Thank you. And write another book, and we'll but come back on anyways. We'll bring you back on.
Fantastic.
You've earned a third. You've earned number 3. You've earned number 3.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.
All right, buddy. All right, my friends. Man, I just forget how much I enjoy talking to Dave, and we communicate back and forth on DM and social media and that often. But it's been 3 years since I've actually talked to him, and I hope you think he's as amazing a guy as I do. Smart, knowledgeable, fun, and really, really good at what he does. You'll love his book. Buy them both, and buy many. Give them away. Anyways, another Rack and Stack coming to an end, and Wes and I are just doing what we love, loving what we do, and living, loving it, and owning it. Doesn't get any better. So, well, I got nothing else for now. I could talk forever because you know me, I'm Randy. But why don't you go make today your best day ever? Till tomorrow. Let's go. Cheers.